Good evening, everyone. This week's parsha is Parshas Devarim, Tavshin Pei Hey 5785, and we will start from the beginning of the parsha. This is Parak Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, chapter 1, verse 1 in Parshas Devarim. Eila Devarim Asher Dibra Moshe Al Kol Yisrael. These are the words that Moshe spoke to the Jewish people. Be'eva Hayarden, the other side of the Jordan. Now, the other side of the Jordan means the other side of the land of Israel. That means the eastern side of the Jordan River. Ba'midbar, in the desert. Ba'arava, on the plain. Mol Suf, opposite the Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds. Bein Paran, between Paran. Uben Tofel v'Lavan, between Tofel and Lavan. V'Chatzeres and Chatzeres, v'Dizav and Dizav. Got that? Follow that? Let's read it again. Moshe spoke to the Jewish people on the other side of the Jordan, in the desert, in the plain, opposite Suf, between the cities of Paran, and between Tofel and Lavan and Chatzeres and Dizav. These are all referring to places.
Look at the different places.
Seemingly they're different places. And we know that right now, based on what we've learned until now, where are the Jewish people located right now? They're located right now right at the Jordan River. They're on the other side. It says the Eva Hayar. They're on the other side of the Jordan River. They're not anymore in Paran. They're not anymore in opposite the Yam Suf. So what exactly does this all mean? We know that they were in the Eva Hayarden. So what are all these other places that seemingly the pasuk is saying Moshe spoke to them there too? So therefore, Rashi tells us that in essence, we don't all the where they were located was Eva Hayarden. They were located on the other side of the Jordan River, the eastern side of the Jordan River, and all the other places mentioned afterwards are not places where Moshe spoke to them at, but Moshe spoke to them about. And when Moshe spoke to them at Eva Hayarden on the other side of the Jordan, he spoke to them about the desert, about the plain, about Suf, about Paran. These are all names of places where the Jewish people had a downfall, sinned. They sinned in the desert, they sinned on the plain, they sinned even opposite Yam Suf, because before Hashem split the Red Sea, the Jewish people were complaining that they're surrounded and they want to go back to Egypt. So all these places are not places where Moshe spoke to the Jewish people at, but about. And it's actually referring that how Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to them and reminded them about the sins that had committed previously. The purpose, of course, of that is to remind them to make sure not to stumble again when they enter the land of Israel.
But this is another different people.
Different people. Yeah, you're right. But the point is they have to remember how their ancestors, how their parents and ancestors stumbled, and to make sure they don't make the same mistakes. Now, so now that Rashi tells us that it's Moshe talking about what happened to these places, so why doesn't it just say the sins? Why say the places where the sins took place? Say he spoke to them about this sin and this sin and this sin. So Rashi says, because actually, in order not to embarrass them, in order to be more respectful to them, he hinted it to them. Instead of saying it outright, he hinted it. By saying the places where these sins took place, that was how, in a more respectful, less embarrassing way, he rebuked them, chastised them for those sins. Instead of saying the sins outright, he mentioned the places, he referred to the places where the sins took place.
But this is word of not Moshe.
Yes, it is. It's Moshe speaking to the Jewish people.
But where he?
So he's in Eva Hayarden. He's on the other side of the Jordan River. But he's speaking to them about the desert and about the plain and about all these places, means all the things that happen in those places.
But you believe this is his words where he speaks?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Nobody embarrassed. This is word, not him.
What?
Moshe speak this. It's like narrative.
No, this is the narrative. He didn't say it yet. It's a narrative that's saying Moshe spoke to the Jewish people when they were in the Eva Hayarden about these places. Okay. But the fact that the Torah is, I am somebody asking, the fact that the Torah is instead of saying, but again, if you want to talk about, then why not say straight out? So the answer is that even when Moshe spoke to them about these sins, instead of mentioning the sins outright, he mentioned the places.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. Now, what we're going to focus on, though, is on the words or on the places uben tofel v'lavan, between places called tofel and lavan. Now, Rashi comments that Amar Rabbi Yechanan, the sage Rabbi Yechanan said, Rashi is citing a medrash. Rabbi Yechanan said, "Chazarnu al kol mikra v'latzinu makam sheshmai tofel v'lavan." There is no place in the Torah you're going to find these places. Is the desert mentioned in the Torah? Yes. Is the plain mentioned? Yes. Is Suf mentioned? Yes. Is Paran mentioned? Yes. Tofel, you're not going to find it anywhere. Lavan, you're not going to find it anywhere. Chatzeres will be mentioned. Dizahav, Rashi has an explanation to that too. But right now we're going on the words ben Paran and ben Tofel. And Rabbi Yochanan says, we haven't found any place like this. Ella ha'chichan, meaning without finding this place in the Torah, what are we referring to? So therefore, the answer is going to be, you're right. There is no actual place, but again, Moshe Rabbeinu hinted to a certain sin, by kind of framing it as a place. And what is he referring to here? Ella ha'chichan ala Devarim, but rather he rebuked them regarding the matters. Shetaflu ala man shehu lavan, when they complained against the man, which was, the Torah tells us, what color was the man? It was white. V'amru v'nafshenu katzeh b'lechem akloikel. We had in the book about Midbar, the Jewish people complaining about this light bread. We're not getting into what light means here. Light means what klokel means. Okay, so therefore, again, what's happening here is that there are no such places, but again, Moshe is cloaking the sin in a place. But what place are we referring to? Tofel, v'lavan, it's referring to the fact that they complained against the man, and that's brought out in the words Tofel and lavan. Tofel means to complain, lavan means white.
Lavan Hebrew
means white.
But
there's a name of somebody named Lavan. Right.
The same spelling?
It's not, it's the same spelling. Lavan. But that was a name, and then it also means white. Now, so there's a question on this posed by the Gur Aryeh, the commentary of Gur Aryeh on Rashi, is that if we're talking about that we're referring here to the sin of complaining about the mun, all the other sins being referred to here, there's one name for it, right? There's one name of a place, and that place refers to the sin. Why here do we have two places? Tofel v'lavan. It could have just said lavan, right? What was white? The mun was white. And what sin happened by the mun? You go back in the Chumash and you see they complained. Why does it have to say Tofel v'lavan to say they complained against the mun? To just say lavan. That's the question the Gur Aryeh asks. The Gur Aryeh answers because actually, by the sin of the mun, there were two sins. There were two problems. Number one, the mun, the Jewish people saw clearly where the mun come from. It was a gift from Hashem.
Yeah.
So when Hashem gives you a gift, right, no matter what it is, even if it's not so good, but Hashem gave you this. This is what he gave you to survive. You don't complain about that. Mm-hmm. And now that it was love and it was white, which means it wasn't just any food. It was lavan, means it was a high quality food. So that's another part of the problem. So the reason why there's two names here is because there's actually two aspects to the sin. Number one, Hashem gives you something. Hashem gives you something. You don't complain about it, even if it's not so good, even if it's not so high quality. This is what Hashem gives you. You don't complain about that. If Hashem is giving it to you, then that's what you're supposed to get. That's the best thing for you to get. Whatever He's giving you, that's the best thing to get. So just the mere fact that it comes from Hashem means you shouldn't complain about it. And secondly, we're talking about the mun, that special food, the mun, which was not low quality, was high quality, it was a very special food. So they complained, number one. So that's why it's double. Tofel complained. They complained about what Hashem gave them. That's one problem. Lavan, and they complained about the mun. That makes it even more, because we're talking about even a very special gift like the mun, and even that they complained about.
Why two sins?
Because it is. It's two things.
Two
There's one thing about, even if it wouldn't have been the mun, even if it wouldn't have been the mun, it would have been something else, but not special like the mun. Hashem gave it to you. Hashem gave you a gift. You don't complain about that.
Okay.
Secondly, it was the Lavan, it was the mun. And it's a very interesting idea, that the Gorari is saying. The Jewish people knew clearly mun came from Hashem.
Everything came from Hashem.
Right, but mun, right, we mean everything.
No birds.
Yeah, true, but the mun was the mun. The birds were regular birds, and they didn't complain about the birds. They never complained about the birds. They never complained about the water when they had it, only when they didn't have it. But the mun was something they actually complained about. So therefore, that's what we're mentioning here. But we're mentioning it double because even if it wouldn't have been the mun, you don't complain about what Hashem gave you. Number two, it was the mun. That makes it even more. And it's a very interesting idea. I mean, maybe it sounds very simple, but that's the idea being conveyed here, is the sense that whatever Hashem gives us, we shouldn't complain about it. Right? What does it say in Pirkei Avos? Ezehu asher hasameach b'chalkai. Who is wealthy, who is happy with his lot, with his portion. If this is a portion Hashem has given us, then that's not something to complain about, because that is what we're supposed to have, that is what we need, and that is, whether we realize it or not, is the best thing that we need. And if at the end of the day, it's something that's even should be understood by us how special it is, and we still complain about it, then that makes it even more severe.
Maybe this is too named. It was a reference to double portion.
No, I mean, you want to say something else, but that's not what Rashi says. Okay, I'm working with what Rashi says.
Okay.
All right. Now, let's move on. So then it tells us it was the 40th year, the 11th month, the first of the month. It was a month. It was Avashtei Asar Chodesh, 11th month, the first of the month. Moshe spoke to the Jewish people after he smote Sichon and Og. Okay, now let's look at Pasuk Hey, verse 5. Be'ever hayardein be'eretz Moav. On the other side of the Jordan in the land of Moab. Hayol Moshe began Be'er es ha-Torah hazos leimar, to explain this Torah saying. So Rashi comments on these words, Be'er es ha-Torah. Moshe explained the Torah. What does this mean, explained? Rashi says, B'shivim lashon pirshalahem. He explained the Torah to them in 70 languages. Do you see that over there in on the bottom of your commentary? They bring that down?
Not really.
Okay. But this Rashi says,
Yes,
okay, that the Torah was explained. Moshe explained the Torah in the 70 languages. We have a concept in the Torah that there are 70 nations. The 7 nations each have their own language. This is what developed after the Tower of Babel was suspended. And Moshe taught them the Torah in all the languages. So the question is, why?
To whom?
To the Jewish people. That's who he's talking to here, right?
No, but Jewish people don't speak.
So number one, do they speak the 70 languages? And even if they did, what was the point? What was the purpose? As we know, as the Ksav, like one of the commentaries here that I'm going to mention, the Ksav HaKabbalah, he says, we find the Jewish people, our sages, always spoke. I mean, they spoke the Hebrew language. That's what they spoke. They spoke Lashon Kodesh. Okay, as time went on, Aramaic got mixed in too because of where they were. But in general, there was a very long period of time that what was a language spoken? The Hebrew language, Lashon Kodesh, the Jewish language. So what's the need to have 70 languages? So first, I'm going to give you an explanation of the Ksav HaKabbalah that says, again, the wording in Rashi is b'shiv'im lashon. Lashon. You ever heard that word, lashon? B'shiv'im lashon, like lashon hara.
Yeah.
Okay, that means evil speech, right? So shiv'im lashon, 70 speeches, 70 talkings typically you translate as a language. The word lashon also means language. So therefore we're saying, well, it sounds like the Medrash is saying, Moshe explained the Torah in 70 languages. Now we have a question, why 70? Why? But the Ksava Kabbalah says the word lashon actually find in other sources, in other places, means a meaning to something. Doesn't mean a language, it means a meaning. There are times where the Talmud says that a certain expression has two lashonos. That means it has two meanings. So the word lashon, which is a word for expression, can mean a language. It could also mean a meaning, an explanation to it. So therefore, the Ksava Kabbalah says 70 lashonos, 70 doesn't mean 70 languages, it means 70 explanations. The Torah, he explained the Torah in 70 ways. And that is, as the Ksava Kabbalah says, the sages say, the Torah, the wording he uses is, right, Shivim Panim La Torah. There are 70 faces to the Torah. That means the Torah can be interpreted in 70 ways. And he explains, we're talking about the inner meanings of the Torah, other than the initial interpretation you would give. When you look at the words of the Torah, there's an initial interpretation that you give. You see the words have a meaning, and you give the interpretation based on that. But then there are other meanings, deeper meanings. And there are many deeper meanings of the Torah. Many deeper meanings, many deeper ways of explaining the Torah. You've got your initial way of looking at the Torah and explaining it, and then there are deeper levels, deeper layers. So here we're saying that Moshe taught to the Jewish people all 70 ways of explaining the Torah. That's what the Ksava Kabbalah says. Before Moshe died, that's what he did for them. And that's also interesting that all of them were able to learn that, right? We had a problem to say they all knew the languages. Well, were they all able to comprehend all the 70 ways? Well, number one, if Moshe is teaching it, could very well be. And number two, yeah, they were on a level to have an understanding of all 70. I'm sure within each 70, each level, there are many different ways and depths of understanding it. But according to Ksava Kabbalah, the 70 languages does not mean languages as in different languages, but in ways of 70 ways of explaining the Torah.
But this book actually there is nothing new compared with 4 books.
Oh, sure there is.
No, but there is some different, but not so deep.
Yeah, but that is not relevant. That's not relevant to this.
This is not he was
again. You have to understand. Moshe reviewed the whole. Moshe did review the whole Torah with the Jewish people here. There are certain things that are mentioned in Parshas Devarim that are actually new.
Yeah.
And some of them that are additions. And some of them that are review.
Okay.
Now, that's one explanation. But other commentaries take the word lashon as you would typically explain it, initially look at the word, that it means languages. So what was the point of 70 languages? So I'm going to try to explain it to you on 2 levels. They're both very similar, but I think they're kind of they're similar ideas. Just to explain it on different levels. So the Sfas Emes, the famous Hasidic Ger Rebbe, the Sfas Emes explained like this: 70 languages correspond to the 70 nations of the world. A language is how a nation expresses itself. It's a kind of a way how it expresses its inner feelings and inner expressions and inner essence. So when we talk about 70 languages, the 70 languages represent the 70 nations of the world. That's the number that we use, that we find used in the words of our sages, that after the Tower of Babel and everybody dispersed, they were dispersed into 70 nations. Those were the original nations of the world. And each language represents another nation. The Sfas Emes says each nation, right, in essence, represents a different power that goes against the Torah. Each nation has within it a power that goes against sanctity. meaning each nation has its way that it actually goes against holiness, against the Torah. And the Jewish people eventually are going to end up in exile. So wherever they were going to go, they had to be able to survive there, even though they were now in an environment that goes against sanctity, that is antithetical to the Torah, antithetical to sanctity. So by Moshe Rabbeinu teaching the Torah in 70 languages, he now infused each one of those places with the light of Torah, so that when the Jewish people would go there, they'd be able to have Torah and cling to the light of Torah even in those places. This is a Kabbalistic explanation. By teaching the Torah in the language of the nations, so now those nations, those languages represent the nations, and that meant now that Moshe infused the light of Torah into all those nations. So when the Jewish people would have to face those nations or face all the challenges of those nations, even in those circumstances, the light of Torah was there for them to cling to.
But this is the biggest idea of Jewish purpose of Jewish people. They should carry light to all world.
Right. But the only way they could do that
Through
is they first had, if all the nations of the world had that light of Torah in them, infused in them, for the Jewish people to cling to when they are there.
The first one who infused was Moshe.
That's what the Sfas Emes is saying. Through teaching, so did the Jewish people understand everything what they were being said in the 70 languages? I don't know, but it didn't matter. The point was, by teaching the Torah, by Moshe relating the Torah to them in those languages, he now infused each one of those nations represented by the languages with the light of Torah, so that when the Jewish people would have to face all those challenges, and they'd be in the environment of all those challenges, the light of Torah was there for them to cling to. That's his wording. You could say it on a little bit of a different level, maybe I'll call it an easier level, is that again, we're working with the same starting idea that the 70 languages represent 70 nations, and each nation has its unique force that represents a challenge to the Torah, to sanctity, to holiness. But the point that Moshe was making to the Jewish people by teaching Torah in each language was lesson to tell them that wherever you land up, no matter where you land up, and no matter what the challenges of where you are will be, you always should have the Torah, and you could always have the Torah anywhere. And whether it's a place, whether it's a challenge, because as we say, each place has its challenge. But the point is, by teaching the Torah in all languages, it was a lesson that Moshe was giving the Jewish people, that Torah is not only in Eretz Yisrael. Torah has to be everywhere. It has to be everywhere. It has to be under all circumstances. So by teaching the Torah in all the languages, Moshe was showing the Jewish people, he was teaching the Jewish people, he was giving them a message. Wherever you may be, whatever challenges you may face, whether they are the challenges of a certain country, whether they be whatever challenges they may be. The 70 language represent the 70 nations with all the challenges that are inherent in them. But those challenges are inherent in them, but not only unique to them. The point, though, is that Moshe is telling the Jewish people, wherever you are, whatever your challenges may be, the Torah is there for you to have it, and you need to engage in it no matter where you are and under whatever circumstances you may be in. Thank you for listening. I just want to tell the listeners that we're going to be taking a break for the next couple of weeks, and Mr. Hashem, we will be resuming. The plan would be at some point at the end of August. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful evening. Have a meaningful Tisha B'Av. And maybe the last Tisha B'Av, maybe we come together again to learn the Parsha in Yerushalayim with the coming of Mashiach b'mheira v'yameinu.
Thank you. This is